Wagwan, Wagwan. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if it's your first time here. I'm the DIY Yardie, and in this video, I'm working on a Honda CRV. Now, this car is having this issue where you notice you turn the key, trying to start it, and you're just getting that clicking sound, which is the starter solenoid is not taking the power from the starter it's not quite cranking. Okay, so anyway, this is a starter replacement, and first thing we're going to do here is with our 10 millimeter, going to disconnect the negative post of the battery and move that aside. Make sure it's not touching. Okay. Then next thing we do is we jack our car up, and you notice I have my jack stand and my jack. Never get under the car without having your jack stand, the wheels blocked, the park brakes on, you know, all the safety features. The more the better. All right, so I'm getting these little clips out of here from the dust shield, and there's a special tool for this, but I'm using a screwdriver and a needle nose pliers. You know, if you're not going to be doing this, these jobs on a regular, you don't really need that special tool. The little screwdriver and the needle nose pliers will work just fine. All right, so there's a 10 millimeter, and that's right in front of the tire. There's one on both sides right in front of the tire, and get that removed. And what I'm going to do now is just pull this dust shield down and show you where the starter is up there. That's one of the front engine mounts, and the starter is directly above that. That's what you're seeing up there with that shiny badge. Okay, straight. This is the starter here. Okay, so gonna have to get to the starter. There's this little bracket, support bracket. We'll have to move that out of the way to get to the starter. All right, so get the dust shield down. There's actually two more little tabs that was holding that dust shield by the inner wheel well. So got that out of the way. Okay, so this bracket here, it's held in place by 12 millimeter bolts. There are one bolt and two nuts on the stud. Okay, so getting that 12 out of there, and the other two are up top, and they go right in the bottom of the air intake. Okay, so it's a support for the air intake, but it's braced on the block, the engine block, and then to the air intake for support. All right, so like I said, those are 12 millimeters, and just loosen that up and get that out of there. All right, so got that loose and moving it out of the way. And then the next thing, you have a 17. There are two bolts that hold the starter to the block, the 17 and a 14. I'm pulling the 17 first, which I recommend you pull the 14 first, which is on the rear, because once you pull this 17, the rear one, it gives you a little more problems to get out. But see, I'm using my brace here, my homemade breaker bar. It's basically an extension with a socket that fits over the ratchet, just for leverage. Put a little leverage on there to help out the situation. All right, so like I said, that's the 17 millimeter, but if you're doing this job, I would suggest you do the rear bolt first, because this front one will hold the starter in place while you pull the rear one. I actually ended up putting the bolt back in after I took it out, just to help hold the starter in place while I pull the rear bolt. Okay, that's what it looks like coming out. So the rear bolt is actually a 14. So I'm using a deep 14. Um, and the reason I'm using a deep 14 is that if I use a regular 14 socket, it kind of like it doesn't give me enough room to get the ratchet on the back or onto the socket. So the deep socket, I can get the ratchet right there. You can see it sticking out behind the starter. So I can just go ahead and get the socket on there and, you know, pull it out of there. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing. A little homemade breaker bar. Basically a socket with an extension that will fit over the ratchet. Okay. I'll put some pressure on there to use my other hand because kind of in an awkward spot here. When you're pulling these bolts, also you want to be mindful of the radiator because the radiator is directly in the front of the car there, so you don't want to do any damage to the radiator. So you want to be careful pulling these bolts. Not to like put too much pressure and jam the radiator. All right. So if you notice, I put the bottom bolt back in just to help hold the starter in place. All right, because without that bottom bolt, the starter was just flopping around, and it was kind of hard. You know, if you're using both hands, I guess you could hold the starter with one hand on, and then unscrew with the other. But I'm actually using one hand because I'm holding the camera with the other, so I can only do it with one hand. All right. So anyway, this is a bolt. Got it loose. That's what it looks like. Okay. And then go ahead and remove the 17 again. Okay. So although you can see the starter, it's kind of tight, you know, um, because of the electrical connectors to it. The power and the signal wire connected to it makes it kind of tight to get in and out of there. All right. So you have to pay attention to the position the starter is sitting in right now while you're taking it out from the car because that's the same way you're going to have to put it back in the car. All right. So I'm using one hand, like I said, so it's giving me a little bit of difficulty. If I was using two hands, it would be a little easier. But I'm trying to catch everything on camera while I'm doing this job. So the easiest thing would be to use both hands, and if you lift the rear of the starter up and like push the rear of the starter up in the air, it would actually give you more room to move the starter back and then out. All right. But what I just did here was I unplugged the signal wire from the starter, hoping that will give me some more clearance on the starter. Okay. Which it did help a little bit. So that's the starter. It's almost out. See the nose of it sticking out there. Just gotta keep wiggling, and like I said, if I was using both hands, it would be much easier because I could pull with one hand in front and push with the other at the rear. Okay. But anyway, it's coming out, and I'm gonna go ahead and get this unloosened and removed from the car. So we got it loose, got it out from the spot, and that's the power wire there. and it's a 12 millimeter. I'm gonna go ahead and get that broken loose. So you want to use both hands when you're doing this. One hand to grab a hold of this wire that you see, pushing the cover back on. That's the 12 volt power wire. You want to grab a hold of that wire and break it loose while holding the wire. All right. You always, when you're installing these new starters, you definitely want to grab a hold of that power wire and hold it for like a leverage when you're tightening down, putting in the new starter. The reason being, the the starters, if you notice, is that little black um, area that the wire is sitting in. That's actually plastic. Okay, and it's easy to break if you don't grab a hold of that wire and hold that wire firmly from spinning while you're tightening down on it. You can actually end up breaking that plastic there. All right, so just giving you a heads up on that. It's not really a good sturdy design. It's kind of a soft, the way that they built that power connection there. All right, so let's get the new starter, and you can see that black thing I'm telling you about right there where the power wire connects to. Okay, I'm actually going to show you how to, you know, go about tightening it up while installing these starters. So we get the power wire on there, and right now I'm just snugging it. I'm not gonna tighten down on it. I'm just snugging right now. Okay. Well, to tighten down, I have to grab with one hand and tighten with the other. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, you want to grab a hold like I'm doing there, and tighten with the ratchet. Okay, grab that wire and hold it firm in place and tighten with the ratchet. All right, so I got it tight. Got my signal wire reconnected, and now I'm going to put the starter in place, or the new one back in place. And it's going to give a little problems, to go back in. And as you notice, um, the direction I'm putting it in right now, I'm actually this is the wrong way that I'm putting it in. Actually, it's supposed to be twisted to the right, um, maybe about 5 or 6 inches. That top uh, hole that you're looking at there, that should be in the back of the starter, not the front. Okay, so I had to work it to the right position once I got it in there. Okay, so I'm going ahead and getting my 17 snug down, and the 17, this front one, you don't want to tighten down on it. You just want to snug it to hold the starter in place, and then get that back one started. So you can't see what you're doing back here. So you're installing the 14, but you're feeling your way through. You know, so you just got to feel your way through until you get it in that hole and get it started. Okay, takes a little time, but once you get it started, you can just hand tighten it down as far as you can get it, and then get the socket on there. So you wanna tighten down as far as you can get it with your hand, and then the socket, because the space, you don't really have that much space to work back there. And there's a sensor in your way. The knock sensor is at the back of the starter, so you definitely want to you know screw that bolt in as far as you can get it before putting the socket on it. All right. So I'm getting this back one tightened down. So the back one you can actually go ahead and torque down since we already got the front one in place. All right. Then we're gonna torque the 17. Don't know why they didn't just go ahead and use the same, size bolt bolt heads. Why a 17 and a 14? I don't know, but hey, that's the way they do it. All right. So now I'm getting my bracket back in, and there's one thing that I did before I put the starter, and even though it's a new starter, I went ahead and tested it out of the car, before I installed it, because you don't want to put a starter in only to find out that even though it's new, it's not working the way it's supposed to. All right. So I'm going to get my battery reconnected. Okay, once everything is connected on the starter, the next step is to reconnect your battery. All right, I'm going to go ahead. As you notice, it starts right up now, okay? That's what it's supposed to do. So got everything back in place. I'm the DIY Yachty. If you found this video helpful, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Bless up.